Chris Christie from time to time can look pretty reasonable in comparison to other Republican presidential hopefuls, and one way is on climate change. Earlier this week he said this: "I think global warming is real. I don't think that's deniable, and I do think human activity contributes to it." Christie added, though, that it's not certain how much humans are to blame for global warming. So that is, I guess, that's the farthest he can go at this point in acknowledging that it's real. He also said, now this is back from 2011, so showing that he's been consistent on this for at least a few years, when you have 90% of the world's scientists who have studied this, stating that climate change is occurring and that humans play a contributing role, it's time to defer to the experts. But you do have to bear in mind that despite his statements, his actual ability to do something about it in terms of bills, that sort of thing, is quite limited up to this point. About 8 months ago, Christie was under strong pressure from his state's legislature to rejoin a regional climate change plan. Christie withdrew his state from the program in 2011, and despite pressure from New Jersey's legislature, has refused to come back. He said, "No, I would not think of rejoining it. I think it's a completely useless plan." And so, look, acknowledging that it is happening is one thing. Acknowledging that we are contributing to it is another, which he's a bit shaky on that. And then acknowledging that we need to do something to reverse it, or at least stop it. That's the third rung. So he's gotten about 1.5 rungs in. And it's not enough to save the earth from going up in flames, but it's something in comparison to, say, Mike Huckabee.
So I love it that it's now national headlines when a Republican acknowledges a fact. Mm-hmm. So like soon it'll get so bad, it'll be like, Ted Cruz finally agrees that 2 + 2 = 4. Breaking news. Right? I mean, he's saying here something that's obvious. I mean, he said 90%. The reality is it's 97% of the world's scientists say that not only is it global warming and climate change happening, but that it's because of humans and what we've done, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, one side thinks that 97% of the world's climate scientists got together and decided a global conspiracy to make sure that Al Gore made more money, got more famous, whatever it was, that was their motivation, decided they were going to launch this cabal at Bilderberg, okay? And the other side thinks, yeah, that's the best science we have, so it's as good a fact as we can possibly have.
To relate it to something,
and this is a big breaking news when a Republican goes, I will now join the side that has all of the facts.
It's like
it is,
but the Republicans are a little like Tom Brady's lawyer. Like Tom Brady's lawyer, who is criticizing the NFL because they say that report was commissioned by the NFL. But Tom Brady's lawyer, we know instinctively, is making a point to save Tom Brady. Like, we know where he's coming from. And yet the mainstream media frequently fails to understand where the Republicans are coming from, right? You know, so this idea that like, for example, to that point, that the NFL would say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to conspire here to defame our most popular team and our most famous athlete. That's our secret plan.
That would take some balls.
Right, exactly.
Nice fun. Okay, no, I actually love that analogy by Ben, because in one scenario, it's obvious where everybody's coming from. You know why Tom Brady's lawyer is saying things that are obviously untrue, right?
Yeah, right.
You know his motivation.
He's protecting Tom Brady.
Right,
Yeah.
and in the case of the Republicans and whoever receives money from lobbyists, like from the oil companies, et cetera, it's super obvious what their motivation is, but the media refuses to say it. It's the honorable gentleman from New Jersey who happens to be acting upon his fastly held beliefs and yada yada. No, it's the money, Lebowski. And at the end of the day, Chris Christie says, okay, fine, I'm not insane, but I will continue to act as if I were insane because I actually will not do anything about climate change.
On this show for years, I just don't understand why they didn't go, yeah, we got it. It's happening and it's real, but I don't think we can do anything about it. I don't think we should do anything about it. It's too it's not cost effective.
Or it would hurt the economy too much.
Right, exactly. Like, you know, and until China and India do exactly this, we're not going to do anything. And that buys them 17 years of doing nothing, which is, for the coal industry and every other sort of industry that plays a big part in sort of putting too much carbon into the atmosphere, that's, whatever. I'm making numbers up. $8.5 billion a year times 17. So they're like, yeah, okay, great, good, fine. I don't know why they just don't take that tact. That is the tact that Christie is essentially taking.
I've read these manuals on insurgencies and counterinsurgencies and stuff. And one of the tools of the insurgents is stretch out their timeline, okay? And so that's what the oil lobbyists do. Yeah, I'm simplifying by just saying oil lobbyists.
Energy, certainly.
Fossil fuels. I don't know why, but saying fossil fuels sounds too lib. Like, okay, anyway. So they don't need to win this argument.
That's right.
All they got to do is stretch it out. So they'll go a decade or two saying there's no such thing as climate change. They'll go a decade or two saying, okay, fine, there is climate change, but we didn't cause it. Then they go a decade or two saying, okay, fine, we did cause it, but there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And
they might be
and
right
China
by
didn't
then.
do it, and China's not doing anything, India's not doing anything.
Even
And
though
so-
China and India are doing things.
And by
the
that
way.
time, they've made literally not just probably trillions of dollars, right? And it's too late, and they've run out of oil anyway. And now finally, we're using sun and wind, and they win. That's how they win.
It's exactly it's the point we've made maybe more than any other point on the show. It's precisely what the tobacco industry did, which was they've got us. And they're going to prove that this cigarette smoking causes heart disease and cancers of the gum and lung diseases and COPD and shortens your life expectancy and hurts your baby. Like, that's just a fact, and we're killing people. They're going to get us. Let's make them take 22 years.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we'll sell so many cigarettes that we'll all be incredibly rich. And they did. That's
Yeah.
exactly what they did. And they did it by exactly the same way, which was hiring a couple of doctors to say, no, smoke Camels. They go down cool, you know, or, you know, sort of, you know, and all these ads about the T-zone keeps the T-zone clean, you know, and you know, 4 out of 5 doctors who smoke Camels, and they gave
T stands for tumor.
they gave legitimacy to people to say, I don't know whether it causes cancer. Some doctors say it does, and some doctors say it doesn't, even though the overwhelming majority of science clearly stated that.
I mean that I think is the obvious sort of model that they're using. The sad thing, though, is the only cost you have that when they did that was that it causes hundreds of thousands of Americans to develop cancer and things like that. Right. But then once you stop, you've stopped. But in this case, if they drag it out long enough, then when they turn to the tact of, well, it's too late to do anything, they'll be right at that point. And it will be too late. And remember, we're talking about worldwide war and drought and starvation and the destruction of agriculture. And so, I mean, we're having these debates because we have to, because we can't personally flip a switch and change it. We're trying to influence people to get them to care so that they'll vote for people who actually do something other than, unlike Christie. And we're literally talking about the possible continuation of our species, at least at the level that we're currently at. And so, I mean, we're inevitably going to look back in future decades and say, how ridiculous is it that we had to play these fucking word games with these morons who are setting the world on fire?
Yeah. And look, it's serious with tobacco because all those people died and continue to die. And we don't have to worry about what's going to happen in the future. There's just a report out contributed to by Harvard and Syracuse and other professors that I covered on the show earlier this week.
Did you say, was it a manual?
Distributed at a jihadi website.
Yeah, sure. That said, forget the climate change aspect of it. The other parts of the new EPA rules that are being set to limit the smog, etc., would save 3,500 lives per year. Now that's more than 9/11 per year, right? And all the Republicans who claim to, oh my God, national security, and they hate those rules and they fight so hard to make sure those rules don't get applied, which means that the extra 3,500 people are going to die every single year throughout the country. So I know they hate science because it gives you facts, right? But that is the reality of it. And so and they get to have wiggle room because they say, well, I mean, could be 3,473 people. You don't really know. You don't know for sure, right? Yeah, okay, but we know well enough.